It is Monday, November 30th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was yet another non-virtual Get Your Ass Kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. And today I didn't do a whole lot of ass kicking or getting my ass kicked. Although I did take what opportunities I could to try out different variations on what we were doing today. And basically it was a review of the truck. And I had a lot of trouble with it to begin with. And I still do. I'll just be honest with you. I still do. And as a matter of fact, one of the biggest things I had trouble with today was we did it on the right side, and then for whatever reason, I can't remember how it happened, but we ended up getting switched around to where we were on the left side, my partner and I, and like trying to do it from the left side. Not only did I fuck it up the first time, but I think I might have accidentally discovered a nice little way to the back from there. But anyway, that aside, I did get quite a bit more of the truck today. And it's weird. It's like, I'm in this weird kind of feeling with jiu-jitsu where, like, I have the expectation that I can do it, and I have, like, the capability of doing it. It's just like realigning it back with like my I don't know how to say it, like my immediate vocabulary as far as my body movements are concerned, because there are certain little adaptations that you have to take into account when you're transitioning from the gi'd to no gi'd jiu-jitsu. And so, like I said, it's been especially challenging because I end up getting little injuries and fucking staph infection, all kinds of weird shit like that. And so, it's just been like more challenging, this time around to get reoriented around. And I feel like I did. I want to say like my third or fourth stripe on my white belt, and maybe my first stripe on my blue belt, that I was just in this funk, where I'm like, I'm starting to progress, but I'm still behind where the extent of my capability has been. I haven't gotten back to where I've already marked as my peak. Now, I do kind of feel like, from today and also from on Friday, I came in a little bit under what I closed out last week at. I think I closed out at 216 for the week, and meaning my weight at the start of class. I don't weigh myself after class because that's just deception. I mean, I sweat a lot. Okay, I mean, like when I sweat when we do drills, I sweat so hard that I'll leave puddles on the mats, and that's just because we're working. We're not fucking around. It's like when we're doing warm-ups. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting in an extra line or two of them above my partner, just because I'm just going. I'm going. And when it's time to switch to something else, I'm just going. And so when we're drilling, I like to keep it moving. And if I'm not able to keep it moving, be the one pushing it, I feel like I'm just not doing it right. I feel like I need to be setting the pace, or hopefully my partner is going a little bit faster than me, pulling me along. I don't really mind that. I kind of look forward to that when I have a partner that's, really wanting to push it and get out of their norm, and get their heart rate up a little bit. I like that. Anyway, but yeah, so we were doing some stuff from the truck, and I found a few little things that made it a little bit easier for me, and I can't really I don't know. I'm having trouble articulating it. The takedown that we did was something that I'd done before, and not only in no-gi jiu-jitsu, but also in gi jiu-jitsu. It was just basic single leg takedown. Although we only did it from one side, and I find that kind of annoying. I like to do things from both sides, because like when I look at shots, specifically a double leg or a single leg takedown, I like to do both sides, because now I have 4 angles that I can hit you at, and there are more. I'm not disqualifying any here, but just basically up front, it's like if they've got if they're matching your leads, so you've got your right foot forward and they've got their left leg forward, that's a single leg takedown situation. If they've got their right leg forward, they're counter my stance, and so now that's a double leg takedown from me just not moving. Like if I don't switch leads but they do, if they've got matching leads with me, single leg takedown. If they've got counter me, double leg takedown. Okay, and that's just from the one lead. That's just with my right leg forward. So now if I switch it and I got my left leg forward, now if they didn't adjust their feet and they still have that other foot forward, single leg takedown. Or if they're matching my lead, if they're matching my lead from that side, so like they bring their right leg forward, single leg takedown. If they bring their left leg forward, double leg takedown. So if they're, I think the matching leads is if I have left leg forward and they have left leg forward, and then opposite is, Anyway, point being that it's 4 ways instead of just 2. So like instead of just having the one single leg takedown and the one double leg takedown, now I have 2 single leg takedowns and 2 double leg takedowns. And I like to I like to mess with my footwork a lot. I've found that consistently is one of the things that's probably the least focused on, and especially in most of the non-traditional martial arts. So now when you're getting into MMA or catch wrestling, a lot of them, they do have specific foot patterns, but as far as focusing on the footwork in general, they kind of leave that to you in most schools. And I'm not entirely certain why that is, but it's always been something that I've paid attention to because I've had to. I've always had some coordination issues, and so really taking the time to designate where I put my feet and all that other stuff, that's always been a focus for me. And so, like I said, I find that that's one of those almost subliminal things. It's like when I swap leads on somebody, I got one lead forward and they adjust to it, and then I swap leads on them, all of a sudden they're just like, well, what? Well, you're not supposed to do that. Is that even can you do that in the rules? Isn't there a rule against that? The UN has got to have something against you swapping leads like that. But no, it's fully legit, and it's just a little mind fuck. You can feign it. If you're in the practice of really doing it, you can feign doing it. And that really fucks people up, because it's like, oh, wait a minute now, you were going to do that thing and you did something else and now you're doing something else. What the fuck? What the fuck is going on here? And so it's like, as long as I can pull things like that on my opponent, I'm pulling his attention away from things like how he can attack me. He's not thinking about striking me. He's not thinking about which way to come in on me, because his leads are fucked up, and he was getting ready to come in for a single leg on that one side because the leg was forward, and now it's not there anymore, and he's confused. I like that, because that confusion, that little glitch, that's going to give me just a little bit of time, just a teeny tiny bit, and that's really all I need. To where I can move my knee from one position to another. Like if I've got one knee up and one knee down, that if I can swap knees being up or down, that'll adjust my position and put me in a better position for when things settle out. That's the opportunity. Those are the moments that I'm going to be using to make those adjustments. And like I always like fucking with people's hips. Like, so if if I got somebody kind of curled in toward me and they're trying to get me back into their guard, I like to just take my hand and put it right in front of their hip. You know, just drop a right hand right in front of the hip, and then when they don't have that anymore, and now if I can just clear myself from the bottom leg, there's no hope of getting me in, and I'm going to come in for side control, and I'm not even going to let up on that leg. I'm going to use that as like a launch ramp coming in, you know. And so that's, again, those are the things that I look for, just little adjustments here and there. You know, when you got somebody coming around the side, you know, get that other leg up, you know, get the outer leg up, get that hip tucked down, you know, get your elbow tucked in, you know, your bottom elbow, get it tucked into your body, you know. And I try to adjust my body like a rock kind of thing, you know. So frames, I'll put my hands on my head, you know. If you're pushing down on there, you're not gonna get in. Now you can pull out my arm then, you know, but then again I can grab my arm with my other arm and support it now. And you know, little things like that, little adjustments. When you're making them in transition, you can end the idea of getting somebody straight onto your back from, you know, from side control or something like that. You can negate that shit. And that's really where I try and focus, is because those are the kinds of things that will frustrate an opponent. And an opponent who's frustrated is going to breathe harder. They're going to burn out faster. They're going to gas out faster. You know, sometimes I don't even mind them getting to my back, because I'm going to make them exert so much fucking effort in getting to my back and keeping my back that they can't close out that RNC. And then I've been in a semi-relaxed position until I've exploded and got out of the back take, and I've rotated around back to like half guard or some shit like that. And now it's my turn to play, you know. And I hate saying it, but I'm kind of oppressive. You know, when I get up on side control or I get up on mount, I'm downright oppressive up there. I want to master this shit. I want you to feel like you're 2 inches tall, and I'm just gonna squash you like a fucking bug. I mean, that's the mentality that I have upstairs, you know. So I'm really leaning onto your shoulders with my hip or something like that. You know, I'm not supporting myself. I'm not keeping my body weight up off of your body. You know, if I'm doing knee on belly, you know, I got my knee across your belly. You're not really breathing all that well because I'm also leaning down towards your shoulders. And again, oppression. That's what it's about. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And you know we're going to go with body count because we kind of do that. And but where to go? I feel like playing Carnivore, especially after that ramp. But I think we play it just a little too much. I mean, it's a fucking awesome song, man. I'm conflicted. But I think we can resolve it. And so here it is. The Solution, 99 Problems by Body Count, First Dance, here on Coin Metal.
Check this out. I got a hoe from the east, I got a hoe from the west.
And that was Within the Ruins with Dreamland. So, as far as what we're going to get into today, and hopefully my program will kick into gear and get me back on live, but, you know, might have to go to another program before it gets its shit together. Yeah, I have to close it out, open it back up again. Hopefully it won't be too noticeable on everybody else's end. I do have a bit of a delay, so that does work to my favor. But yeah, so as far as what we're going to get into music-wise, or not music-wise, material-wise, I got a few tabs open. I started investigating one thing that seemed kind of interesting here. And I invariably ran across something that I wasn't even looking for, and something a little more meaty, I think, than what we were originally going to talk about. let me see here. I'm trying to get back to the original place I wanted to start off with. This one right here. It's on crypto-newsflash.com. And I thought this is kind of funny because it seems to me that Ripple, they've gone through this little dance with all the regulators where they've been like, XRP isn't a security. No, it's not a security. It's a cryptocurrency. Yeah, and they've done this fucking dance with regulators for pretty much as long as Ripple has been on any exchanges. And in all honesty, I believe that Ripple is, or Ripple is a company and XRP is its securities, because their primary business is selling XRP. So, and selling services in XRP. So, yeah. Anyway, I got this thing here. Garlinghouse. Ripple will succeed even if XRP is declared a security. And this is by Ronaldo. It was authored on November 27th, 2020. But yes, penis. In an episode of the Pump podcast, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse spoke with Morgan Creek Digital co-founder Anthony Pompliano. Among the topics covered in the interview, Garlinghouse talked about the U.S. regulatory environment, Ripple's possible migration out of the U.S., and a key issue for the company, the possibility of XRP being classified as a security. In that regard, Garlinghouse highlighted the, quote, frustration that exists towards U.S. regulatory authorities over their stance on cryptocurrencies. Citing a Justice Department report that attempted to unify the views of regulatory authorities, Garlinghouse said that at least 7 different positions were cited, therefore demonstrating the lack of unity in their criteria. In operational terms, Ripple has about 150 potential customers in the United States who require regulatory clarity before they can begin using the company's products that leverage XRP. Therefore, Garlinghouse believes that Bitcoin and Ethereum have an unfair advantage when they were classified as commodities. No, they were classified as commodities because literally all of those regulatory entities cannot do shit about you going out there and buying some hardware and dedicating it to mining. That exemption, though, does not apply to Ripple. They are a centralized entity. I don't know that you can even be a node on their network, so there you go. Continuing. In operational terms, we already read that part. Ripple's CEO believes that China is the biggest winner because the Chinese Communist Party controls these technologies. When asked if there is a possibility that China will make a 51% attack on Bitcoin's network, Garlinghouse responded, quote, "Of course." Yeah, he's full of shit too. Garlinghouse was not concerned about the possibility of XRP being classified as a security. Ripple would be able to exist if this materializes. This is because most of the payment solutions companies' customers that use XRP are outside of the United States, Garlinghouse added. Quote, "It is my very strong opinion that it's very hard to look at XRP as a security. If XRP were deemed a security here in the United States, that, we have other G20 markets that have taken a different view. I'm not aware of any market globally that thinks of XRP as a security, except about 85% of the cryptosphere." But anyway, continuing. The company has a pending lawsuit filed by early investors of an XRP ICO claiming losses caused by Ripple. Therefore, they are attempting to have XRP classified as a security to obtain monetary compensation for their alleged losses. However, Garlinghouse said that if XRP is classified as a security, that they could continue to operate with a license in the United States and continue to expand outside the country. Yeah. Oh, let me see if there's any comments on this. Oh, no. XRP buying opportunity. As reported by CNF, XRP has had a significant increase in price in the last few days, motivated by progress in the development of XPRL and the confirmation of Ripple's partnership with Bank of America, BOF. The trader Credible Crypto believes that XRP will reach $25 to $30 in the next bullish cycle. Therefore, he believes that the recent market crash represents a good buying opportunity. At the time of publication, XRP is trading at 53 cents with losses of 2.54% in the last 24 hours. In the weekly and monthly charts, XRP has had gains of 76% and 112%, respectively, surpassing Bitcoin and Ethereum. It is the best performing cryptocurrency in the last month. Yeah, that's the last month, though. And I'm kind of saddened by XRP in that they continue the the same kind of veiled mentality when it comes to the market. You know, where they've got cards that they get to hold and nobody else gets to see. And the problems that I have with that is that they've been trying to pass it off as a cryptocurrency, when in fact, if it were adopted by a government as their formal network, there would be no place for the average person on their network. And this is antithetical to pretty much everything that cryptocurrencies were set up to solve. I mean, what use do I have for a centralized coin that I cannot participate in no matter how much I want to? And especially when there are coins out there that I can participate in. And this is the thing that Ripple and any other centralized service just fails to want to recognize. You know, when you hear people talk about Lightning or Liquid or any of that layer 2 bullshit, whether it's on Ethereum or Tron, they're talking about things that for the most part you can't participate in. Some of them you can, and to that extent, I congratulate them for involving you. But I'm talking about more than just in the sense of staking up your Ethereum or tying up your Ethereum in some sort of smart contract or something. Yeah, whatever. Hardware. Participating in the networks. And this is a value that I've only seen recent interest increase in. You know, that people are looking at those profit margins on Bitcoin and they're like, well, you know, I got some miners in the closet here. You know, we can fire those bad boys up and take some advantage of this. And so I've seen this increase in interest, but I believe that there's been more kind of centralization with regard to the entities that are purchasing the Bitcoin, and that eventually even they will be asking for more sort of quote-unquote regulatory clarity on the end of the miners. You know, meaning that they're going to want licensed miners involved and so on and so forth. And I don't even think that they really understand what that would mean for them in the longer term. You know, but they ask for it because it's some expectation that's being put on them by a government entity or an extra governmental entity, where they're trying to get a deeper view in, you know, whether that be associating your transactions with you so that you can be properly taxed, or whether it just be to track monetary flows for, assuming, of course, that quote-unquote terrorism and stopping it is an actual goal. See, I don't think it is. I think that's like window dressing, and I hate saying that, but really it seems like there's a market out there for violence, and it's just about who's interested in basically how much they're willing to pay to have their desires put through, And so, the idea of trying to track terrorism or track terrorist financing, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't lead to anything other than, they bought bullets on this day, they bought grenades on that day, and they received all of them on this day, and that's about the only thing they can do. I mean, and so what use is it then when you can only look at the digital record in retrospect in trying to understand what entities they referred to? And so, in that in itself, if people weren't adapting constantly with changing up the way they communicate and all that, if they're in fact having some sort of nefarious intent, that they're on it with OPSEC. That they're not using the same addresses to receive funds and such. They're doing things to obfuscate their monetary and financial activity. And it's not just a matter of which currencies they use, it's how they use them too, that neutralizes a lot of this paper trail that some people anyway, seem to care so much about. But the reason I think there's just like a market for violence out there and they really don't care about stopping terrorism is because these banks, they file STRs, suspicious transaction reports, for every suspicious transaction that they process. They don't stop the transaction. They know what it's for. They don't stop the criminal activity because, they're getting their fee from it. And so everything is cool on their end. They've reported it to the government with this STR report. And so, they're clean of any kind of repercussions legally because they've acted within the law, they've done their due diligence, and they've filled out the paperwork and they turned it in, and so everything is fine. They've done everything they're supposed to do. But of course the Fed doesn't really do anything about all that activity. They just take note of it. And I'm supposing at some end or another that at some point they do go to these entities and say, hey, we got all this financial activity that we're tracking here. We notice you're not giving us a cut of it, so you're going to have to give us a cut now. And I think that there's an expectation that that's going to happen sometime in the future, but I think they're going to find more and more that by the time they even have real operational knowledge that they can actually, act on effectively, by the time they have that, the damage is already done. The transactions have already happened. The money has already changed hands. The products have already been received. The intended purpose for those products has already been facilitated and utilized and all that other bullshit. It's already happened. It's already too late. Too late to do anyone any good. It'll be just like the DOJ and their fucking what was that, Operation Fast and Furious. I just caught this additional detail about that case. I didn't know it, but apparently the guns that they were selling to the Sinaloa cartel had some sort of GPS tracking on them that lasted all of 48 hours. And so if the guns sat in a fucking warehouse for a couple days and then moved, they just lost track of all the guns. But I mean, these trackers are supposed to exist for a long time so that they were able to see the material transfer of these weapons. And chances are, from the point where the GPSs were active or activated to the 48 hours when their batteries ran out, I doubt that there was more than one, maybe two transfers involved. I mean, especially if we're talking about a significant amount of hardware at once. You know, cases of guns and shit. You know, you got 20 or 30 guns going somewhere. They're probably going to sit somewhere for some duration of time while people are preparing them for either transfer or finding buyers for them or whatever. The point being is, they probably sat there in one place in excess of the 48-hour window when the GPS was active, and then after that the guns just fucking disappeared. The next time we saw them, they were supposedly associated with criminal activities that were happening, and we only know that they happened with these guns because the guns were recovered. You know, an incident would happen and the gun would be recovered. And it's like, oh shit, this is one of the guns that we sold to the Sinaloa cartel. It was just used to kill a cop. That's happened. You know, that's one of the reasons why that case got any kind of attention whatsoever. But there's been accusations that the FBI and DOJ have been conducting similar operations elsewhere in the country, and it's the same fucking result every time. You know, it's just like, all of a sudden these guns show up on the streets of fucking Chicago, highest murder rate in the entire fucking planet, and even worse than some war zones. And people are like, dude, where are all the guns coming from? Where are all the guns coming from? Oh, well, the FBI, DOJ with their fucking gun walking bullshit. That's where they came from. Anyway, that's another rant for another show. But yeah, so anyway, I think that just like all of what we just talked about, it's just bullshit from regulation. You know, that they create pressure points in the market that they can be using for taxation purposes and regulation purposes, and they end up creating honeypots of information and black markets. And that's pretty much about it. Anyway, I wanted to get a little bit further into something else though. And I tried following this up to the white paper, but for some reason I couldn't find it wouldn't let me access it from their website. But I thought it was interesting nonetheless, and so here it is. And this is on crypto-news-flash.com. POFID DAO. Will it lead to the reform in blockchain technology? No. And this is by Jake Simmons, and it was authored November 30th, 2020. So yes, penis. Blockchain caught public attention with the birth of Bitcoin in 2009. Actually, it was kind of like 2008. And it has reached prominence since then. This new technology, which is based on existing computing and communication technology, has been reconstructed and become a new self-contained technology. With their financial attributes, Bitcoin and various other cryptocurrencies have brought about a paradigm shift and independently developed into a new economic field. In fact, the changes in economic modeling brought about by cryptocurrencies have far exceeded their impressive technological achievements. Ardent believers assert that the revolutionary significance of blockchain far exceeds that of the internet and can even trigger a new industrial revolution. A new industrial revolution must, at least, be marked by the birth of a new kind of productivity. Looking back at history, the first industrial revolution was marked by the improvement of steam engines. Actually, that's bullshit. The second by the widespread application of electricity, and that's also off. And the third by the invention and use of computers. Several years ago, Jack Ma famously said that data is a new source of energy. This can be considered a continuation of the Industrial Revolution triggered by computers. Actually, I think that's a misread. There is an association of energy and data, and a direct association when we're talking about cryptocurrencies. But yeah, I think it's kind of a misread. Anyway, continuing. Put in another way, it can be noted that every industrial revolution is ultimately the liberating of human labor. Computers have replaced much work that was previously the domain of human brains. Data is one of the energy sources that drive this productivity. As the economic dividends brought about by population growth continue to shrink, the need for computers to replace manpower has become ever more relevant, especially with AI and other technologies showing the promise of completing tasks that humans cannot do. Therefore, in our opinion, blockchain is still only a continuation of the third industrial revolution. Actually, it's much more than that. Under the governance model of the blockchain, computers can indeed replace the functions of many people, but this is not because people cannot complete these tasks, but rather because the cost of communication is essentially reduced to zero. That's not true either. Essentially, most of the meat behind the modern economic management theory can be distilled down to the issue of interpersonal collaboration. The cost of collaboration is one of the largest cost components in modern economic activities. This can easily be seen from the large number of executives to large multinational corporations. Why interpersonal collaboration costs so much can be explained by the simple fact that humans have the ability to think logically. Language and writing enable knowledge to be recorded and passed on, driving the development of human communities. Language and writing are the products of the human mind. Circuit diagrams can simulate the thinking of the human mind as closely as possible, although there are still some behaviors in the human brain that cannot be explained and therefore expressed with circuit diagrams. Whatever the case, humans lie, but circuit diagrams do not. This is something that is easily verifiable. Yeah, but data can be misassociated, and it can be intentional. Continuing. A 2014 study showed that the prefrontal dorsolateral cortex in the brain may be the switch for honesty. Once this brain area is damaged, people tend to lie for self-interest. Research into cases of prefrontal lobe injury have shown that the prefrontal lobe also plays an important inhibitory role in the vocabulary access process of bilingual language production and bilingual language comprehension. Research shows that people with no brain injuries tend to be more willing to tell the truth. People with a damaged dorsolateral prefrontal cortex have different behavior patterns. Once honesty and self-interest contradict with each other, they make more dishonest choices. However, the activities of the prefrontal lobes are not observable in daily life. The problems of interpersonal collaboration caused by the prefrontal lobes are not all caused by, quote, dishonesty. The essence of interpersonal collaboration is treating each individual as a processor. When information passes through each processor, it is processed and then passes on to the next processor. Regardless of the issue of dishonesty, sometimes people cannot control their own processing logic 100% of the time. The problem lies in the fact the processing of this information is not provable, so there is a cost to collaboration. The CPU calculation process in computers is closed, so the network formed by the centralized system is very similar to the current form of human collaboration. The transmission of information on each node of the network may be processed without proof, so Although the traditional internet network can transmit the results of information processing at high speed, it cannot solve the problem of credibility of the processed information, and therefore cannot reduce the main cost of interpersonal collaboration. This is the most fundamental role of the blockchain. Information processed in the Bitcoin network has only a single function, that of bookkeeping, while the smart contract of Ethereum is Turing complete. Through contract programming, the blockchain can almost completely imitate the brain activity in processing all information. Once the smart contract is deployed, it faithfully performs its own information processing obligations, and this process is completely transparent, with all miners able to witness it. While this was all technologically revolutionary, a new problem was born. Because blockchain networks like Bitcoin/Ethereum all need to verify the processing of information under the premise that the information is completely symmetrical, this information is broadcast and synchronized in an open network. As a result, a lot of private information is leaked. It is for this reason that new public blockchain protocols supporting data privacy have emerged. These chains enable the information to be processed and transmitted faithfully while ensuring public access to information is limited. There are immense differences between the characteristics of the blockchain and centralized systems. I hate that. I fucking hate that. There is no one quote-unquote blockchain out there. So when they say the blockchain, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? What the blockchain? There's like 500,000, 600,000 maybe out there that are operational right now. So the idea of narrowing it down to 2 words, the blockchain, yeah, fuck you, whatever, can be said to have 3 main advantages. Number 1, the asset records on the chain cannot be tampered with and will not disappear. In contrast, in centralized systems, asset data can be modified at will. Oh shit. Number 1 is not true. There have been rollbacks, there have been attacks, and there have been transactions completely disappeared. Anyway, continuing on. Assets are on the chain, which means that this is number 2, by the way. Assets are on the chain, which means that users have absolute and sole ownership of the assets. In contrast, in centralized systems, the administrator has the right to handle all assets like a god. Number 3. The path from birth of each asset on the chain is clearly traceable. When you see the existence of a Bitcoin, you exactly the power computing paid for what? You know exactly the computing power paid for it by a miner. If the digital asset is a contract issued asset, for example, a dead asset on the chain, you know exactly what triggered the contract to issue the asset. In contrast, in centralized systems there is no such transparent auditing mechanism. So, it is difficult to say whether or not data on such a centralized system can be understood as a real asset. From the perspective of commercial applications at present, real assets are confirmed on the chain through an interface to digital assets with associated legal significance. This is already a technological reality, and most of the commercial work is achieved through processing of logic on the contract level. If the problem of data and asset privacy can be solved, then the last piece of the puzzle in technology will be put in place for widespread adoption in the commercial world to be possible. No. I don't think that kind of condition makes the real big difference as to whether or not the rest of the market is going to adopt it. I think the fact that it would either be more efficient, it would cost less, something to that effect might help adoption. Continuing. So what kind of economic activities have assets that can be optimized through blockchain technology? How can we distinguish real digital assets from other digital information? And how do we define the standards of these digital assets? Oh, you fuck off. That's how you fucking define the standards of these digital assets. You assess that stuff after the stuff is released. You say, what the fuck is this? Do I have any use for this thing? Can I participate in this thing? What is this thing? You don't get it from some fucking entity out there defining what the standards are and saying, oh, your shit doesn't comply with our standards. Yeah, fuck you. Anyway, continuing. The value logic behind so many so-called, quote, digital assets in the market is questionable. Nowadays, most crypto exchanges have rejected the listing of tokens with the nature of securities. There is an essential difference between assets and securitized assets. Crucially, the latter has an investment value. If the digital assets cannot support securitized assets, the significance of the blockchain will shrink by more than half. That's not true either. However, if the anchoring relationship between real assets and securitized digital assets on the chain cannot be established, it will be difficult for these securitized digital assets to become a reality. No, it'll be impossible. You cannot associate something directly in all ways and forms between physical and digital. And the reason you can't is very, very simple. The conditions or state of an object can change in physical space in ways that you cannot account for in digital space. Not even if you're tracking it at all times. There could be a verbal agreement of exchange between one person and another living in the same domicile, and for all you know, the state of ownership is not actually changed anywhere in the digital world. Everybody knows the last time it was registered, it was in Joe Smith's account. It was associated with his identification. What the rest of the world doesn't know is that Joe Smith exchanged it to his cousin Eddie, who happens to live in the same apartment building, and so there's no difference in the IP that it's registered under because they're living in the same house. But the rest of the world thinks it's still Joe Smith's. And so yeah, the idea of being able to directly associate physical stuff with digital stuff is a fucking stupid idea. Anyway, continuing on. In summary, we are seeing an opportunity for the blockchain to usher in a paradigm shift in finance and commerce, and governments of various countries have entered into substantive consultation and legislation on the compliance of assets on the chain. With positive policy changes rapidly approaching, the market urgently needs a tool to provide solutions for the securitization of digital assets. You know what? It never needed it before, and it still doesn't need it now. Among all of the solutions to this problem, I found POFID, Privacy-Oriented Financial Instrument Distribution Framework, and DAO, to be a particularly strong solution. A trusted digital asset conversion channel that supports privacy protection through smart contract technology. POFID is a platform where real assets are mapped to quantifiable digital assets on the chain. At the same time, POFID supports diverse asset classes and provides the support for such assets to be used as guarantees to generate other financial products and therefore provide better liquidity. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and stop right there. But we will continue with the rest of this on the other side. Actually, it's almost over. Never mind. I'm going to finish it up. There's only like 2 paragraphs left. POFID provides an oracle interface for evaluating the value of real assets behind digital assets. This reliability obtains real-time asset price fluctuation data, providing strong data support for the underlying control engine. In addition, POFID also satisfies the role of an autonomous trust asset management institution, providing digital asset custody and investment channels. It can be said that the emergence of this platform brings opportunity to break the original function of financial institutions, allowing for truly transformational financial activities. No. They're trying to move the standardization up a level from just the exchanges and MSBs to the developers and the standard setters. And of course, I'm sure at some point or another they have it planned that these entities will be required to be registered somewhere, and all of the products that they issue will be required to be issued somewhere. And here's the problem with that. Regardless of what kind of multinational frameworks you set up, regardless of what entity you set this up under, whether it be the UN or the OCC or anybody, doesn't matter. It will not work. Why? Because the average person right now with nothing more than a desktop can deploy a new digital currency standard. And then when that happens, all of your policy rhetoric, all of the shit that you got in the books is completely fucking useless. And especially if they aren't even trying to bother to interface with fiat or any other regulated currency form. You know, if you put some sort of walled garden up in your country concerning Bitcoin, and then you got to get licensed to be a miner, you got to be licensed to be a pool operator, and all that. Say that happens. As soon as it does happen, and people start feeling the pinch from what that actually means for them, as far as the framework of how their money is transferred is concerned, you're going to see them creating new currencies that are outside of all of the regulatory frameworks, outside of all the regulated and licensed exchanges, completely devoid of any kind of KYC, AML bullshit. And it'll be gone as far as the legal realm is concerned. They won't even be able to touch it. It'll just be happening out there somewhere. They won't even know about it for the most part until it's way too fucking late. And this is destined to happen. This is not something like alcohol production or anything like that. I mean, there's very, very little physical resources that you need in order to participate in this space. I mean, the bar is so low that if all you're doing is creating code to implement on some of these projects, you could be a world influencer, where you're recognized internationally, and without the fluff of any association of what country you're from, or you know what's between your legs, or any of that color of your skin. None of that shit's gonna matter. If people like your shit, they will use it. And so the idea of POFID, some sort of standardized setup for, I don't think it'll work. We can't really come to that kind of consensus on these projects. It's why Ethereum is still fucking proof of work network after 3 years of the developers and the users that don't have a fucking clue what they're asking for have been petitioning for this transfer to POS. It still hasn't happened. Supposedly there's all kinds of money tied up in a contract for that, but again, it has yet to happen. And so, again, the idea that you're going to be able to foist some sort of framework on the rest of the world and they're going to comply with it. Bullshit. I can guarantee you right now, if you go to Venezuela, if you go to Turkey, if you go to Bolivia, or any of these places that have been using crypto as like a means for transferring funds for remittances and stuff like that, or just to circumvent their laws within their own country, that you're not going to be finding people that are wanting to get into this POFID thing. You're going to be finding people that want to stay completely outside of that, because they've seen what that looks like, and they can already tell you it's not what you want. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And as far as where to go, I haven't picked anything out. Here we go. Anthrax, Time, here on Coin Metal. And that was Powerman 5000 with Supernova Goes Pop. And so, as far as what else we're going to get into, did some digging around. And of course, you know me, I found some stuff. And we're going to get into it right now. And this is, I think this one right here is probably the first salvo that we're going to see against the large-scale Bitcoin miners. Okay? Now, I've talked about this multiple times on this show, that these big-ass warehouses full of fucking miners had a limited run. That whatever advantage they had in the network would exist for a short duration of time. You know, that the period in which warehouses full of ASICs being practical was limited. And so here, I got this thing, it's on Cointelegraph.com. And this one's by Samuel Hague, so yes, penis. Authorities shut off electricity to Bitcoin miners in China's Yunnan province. Local media reports indicate electricity providers in Yunnan's, China's fourth largest province by Bitcoin hash rate, have been ordered not to provide power to crypto miners. Local sources report that authorities from the city of Boashan and in the Chinese province of Yunnan are escalating efforts to crack down on Bitcoin miners, ordering electricity producers to cease supplying power to the city's miners. On November 30th, Chinese crypto reporter Colin Wu tweeted that several miners informed him of the ban, sharing what appear to be scanned copies of official documents issued to power producers. Quote, several miners told Wu that Baoshan, Yunnan, where China's crypto mines are located, received a ban on November 30th, requiring the power station to stop supplying power to the miners. Yunnan is the third largest mining place in China after Sichuan and Xinjiang. However, Wu added that the ban was probably informed by localized, quote, economic interest, and probably is not indicative of a desire to quash crypto mining on the part of Beijing. Quote, there is no need to overestimate the impact of this incident. The attitude of China local power companies toward crypto mining is often changing. It is more a demand for economic interest than political pressure. The ban appears to have coincided with a 24-hour drop in global hash rate of roughly 10% from 140 exahashes per second to 125 exahashes, though correlation is far from causation. According to Cambridge University's Bitcoin Electricity Consumption Index, or BECI, Yunnan was China's fourth largest region by mining hash rate, behind Xinjiang and Sichuan and Inner Mongolia as of April 2020. Yunnan then represented about 5.42% of global hash rate, ranking it above all countries except for China, the United States, Russia, and Kazakhstan. In June, Wu reported that Yunnan's government had ordered 64 unauthorized mining operations to shut down, including 7 that were still under construction. The government cited tax evasion and security risks, including how the mines were wired to local hydropower stations. During the same month, a local Bitcoin mine caught fire, resulting in the incineration of thousands of units. The mid-year crackdown also followed a May 29th explosion at a hydropower station in Yunnan that killed 6 people and injured 5. The explosion was believed to have prompted greater enforcement of safety standards concerning hydropower plants in the region. In April, Yunnan's state grid also issued a document warning electricity producers against the unauthorized diversion of power to Bitcoin mines. And we heard that, I want to say it was about 2 years ago, that the miners were actually investing in their own electrical infrastructure in order to avoid detection on the grid and interruption such as this. But as I said, this could very well be one of those things where we're starting to see governments say, hey, we want to interrupt Bitcoin. And the points that they're going to do so are going to be at large-scale miners. This is inevitable. This is not I'm predicting this, that in the not-so-distant future, governments are going to be targeting the miners within one another's borders. Why? It's not because they're trying to get rid of Bitcoin. No. Don't mistake that. It's not because they're trying to get rid of Bitcoin. It's because they're trying to increase the amount of benefit their constituents, their citizens, can receive by mining. And like I said, at one point or another, this particular conflict is going to go kinetic. And I couldn't tell you exactly which physical manifestation it may take. It could just be hacking and exploits and 51% attacks initiated by national governments or some shit like that. However, it will go kinetic. Meaning that either governments will be shutting down miners that won't play along with them, or are just out of compliance, or whatever, for whatever fucking excuse, whatever reason, doesn't matter. That at some point or another, the bigger mining organizations are going to get hit with these motherfuckers wanting money from them. And I don't care what form it comes in, regulation, licensure, whatever, but they're going to be targeting the bigger guys. Because that's where the money is. Your next door neighbor kid burning hashes on GPUs. Nah, they don't even give a fuck about him. He's not enough of the network to give a shit about. But now that big mining center that's down the road a ways and creates all kinds of noise that everybody complains about, but everybody likes the jobs from, he's going to get hit. Where the city government, the state government, the federal government are going to be coming to him saying, hey, yo, give me some paper. And hopefully by then they'll be entrenched enough that they can put up some sort of resistance to that. But yeah, I think that in places like China, and this is why I've never given a shit about the quote-unquote centralization of mining in China. Because it's temporary. It is temporary. I mean, the mining literally changes location from Sichuan to Inner Mongolia, depending on the time of year. That give you any idea how temporary this shit is? And we're talking about large chunks of the fucking network physically changing locations based on the seasons. This is a reality for them. So if they're willing to go through that kind of operational expense and risk to the units in transfer, it should give you an idea of how serious a game this shit really is. You know, if they can entertain those kind of transfers of material because, you know, they've got the money to do it, and that's despite being in a communist nation, you know, that should really tell you something about the power of this. Anyway. Next thing I got up, it's on Cointelegraph again, and this one's by Ezio Rojas. Yes, penis. Venezuelan army starts mining Bitcoin to make ends meet. And this is authored approximately 10 hours ago. Continuing. The regime of Nicolas Maduro continues to lean on crypto to keep economically solvent. Via Instagram, an engineering brigade of the Venezuelan army inaugurated the new Digital Assets Production Center of the Bolivian Army of Venezuela. Bolivarian Army of Venezuela. As the video shows, the center houses various ASIC mining equipment used to crack proof-of-work algorithms. General Lenin Herrera presented the new mining operation. The stated goal of the mining operation is, quote, strengthening and self-sustainability of our units of the Bolivarian Army, adding later that these mining centers would be generating, quote, unblockable sources of income and an alternative to the, quote, trust system blocked and controlled by colonialist interests, i.e. referring to the United States, a country that has levied sanctions against many associates of the Maduro regime. With oil prices crashing and political turmoil taking its toll even before COVID-19, Venezuela has seen historic inflation in recent months. As Cointelegraph reported in September, Maduro proposed an, quote, anti-blocks law, a legal body that proposes using cryptocurrencies to evade sanctions and access financing from international allies. These intentions are not new. The Maduro administration has gone so far as to launch and promote its own cryptocurrency, the Petro, which has seen limited success. On the flip side, the U.S. military is also closely observing Venezuela's crypto activities. Recently, Admiral Craig Stephen Fuller referred to Maduro's use of crypto and went so far as to link its use to drug trafficking and terrorism, adding to that the armed forces were keeping an eye on all such operations. Yeah, whatever. Get the fuck off it, dude. Yeah. This shit is international. Okay? Just because these motherfuckers are mining it does not mean you cannot make money off of it. I mean, really. So who gives a fuck if they're mining, and who gives a fuck if they're using those funds to purchase goods and services from other countries? Who really gives a shit? I do not. As far as I'm concerned, the things that they are most likely going to be able to purchase are going to be consumables, are going to be food, are going to be electricity, are going to be clothing, are going to be consumer electronics, are going to be shit things people need to stay the fuck alive. You know, and this big concern that, oh my god, we can't control every single transaction, we can't control all the money activity happening on the planet. Too fucking bad. Get over it. That was gone the moment that Bitcoin started. It's international. It's not just happening in the United States. It's not just happening in China. It's not just happening in Iran. It's also happening in a lot of our allies abroad. It's happening throughout Europe. It's happening throughout the Middle East. And all of it is changing the dynamic between the citizen and their government. And the further that governments try to retain some sort of control over this, the more they're going to alienate themselves from their citizens. Because the more they're going to be criminalizing their citizens, the more they're going to be trying to tax and regulate their citizens. And the fact of the matter is that these cryptocurrencies can operate in a very, very hostile environment. And because of their peer-to-peer nature, will persist in the most hostile of environments. You know, make credit cards illegal and force people to get microchips in their fucking arms. You're gonna watch all of your commercial activity just fall off the map. You'll be able to see it if you're looking on cryptocurrency block explorers for the transactions that are associated with that monetary activity, that commercial activity. But that's about it. You're not going to be able to do anything about it. I mean, unless you're interdicting in shipments of food and stuff between people. But that, again, will reveal the central points of failure. And people will shift the supply. I mean, I've noticed that this year, I've noticed more people setting up agriculture, growing of things to eat on their property than I have in quite a few years. And this to me is a signal. It's demonstrating that, yes, we understand the fragility of our supply chain. And we understand that at any moment, it could snap, where the government could say some stupid shit and block something from somebody else, and all of a sudden we're in limbo for supply of goods that you eat. And we've decided to at least supply ourselves, or at least account for our own local supply of goods and services. And this trend is not going to change. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to proliferate, and especially now that we have such things as the internet and 3D printing. And I think the whole control paradigm is going to be doing a major pendulum swing backwards. And I'm not entirely certain what's going to create it, but I do believe that in order to contend with a future that is commercially happening outside of the legacy systems and the legacy tax registration, all that other bullshit, that we are going to see a greater migration to it because of the lack of these friction points. And what it is going to become for our governments is how far they can stay the fuck out of our way. Because all of these international organizations have been trying to set the tone and the tenor for the entire global economy. I believe they're completely lost at this point. That they're looking at these very things that we report on this show. And they're saying to themselves, what is the global economy going to look like in 2 years if we keep up this bullshit of trying to impose these big old grandiose dreams that we're coming up with at the UN, and we're just going to subject everybody to Agenda 21 and the Green New Deal, and they're just going to fucking do it and accept it, and they're not going to argue with it, and they're not going to protest, and we've got the controls of all the levers of the economy, so, we can make sure that if you don't do what the fuck we want, we just take away all your money. No, that's all gone. That's all gone. It might have been possible back in, say, 2006, 2007 to do it. But after the invention of Bitcoin and the establishment of the network and the proof of concept of the operation of it, without the involvement of any banks or regulators or government organizations, that it was a viable project, as soon as that was revealed and the fact that it was operating on mostly consumer grade equipment that was easily 2 to 4 years old and just being repurposed because it was sitting in somebody's corner not doing anything. Once that was established, once that was proven, the whole framework has needed to change. And there have been certain entities that they've had everything so invested in this certain production path. You know, they got it established, man. It's like, this is how it's going to fucking go. And they're so used to everything just going that way. But it's because they've had all these control points, you know, where they've been able to apply taxes, they've been able to apply licensure and regulation, all this other bullshit. You point a gun, make sure everybody complies. They've been able to do that. But the barrier for entry and participation in cryptocurrencies has been lowered so low that the expense of trying to put a fucking gun in everybody's face is too high to manage. And especially now, you know, I don't think they're asking, any movement is asking to quote unquote defund cops because they think it's some sort of humanitarian change that needs to happen. It's because they looked at the Green New Deal and they had just one realistic thought in all of their delusions of thinking how it's going to work and everybody's just going to say. They had one reasonable thought, and that was this: how are we going to pay for cops if people aren't working and generating taxes? It was the only time they ever bothered to consider it, but it was something that they considered, and they said, we're going to replace cops with social workers for about 2/3 of all their duties. Now, we've already I saw an attempted application of this model, and what ended up happening is, while the social worker was talking to one person, another person that was involved in the altercation came up and basically beat the shit out of the female social worker, and it was male. He was about maybe 1.5 times her weight or 2 times her weight. I don't know, pretty close. There was a significant size differential between the aggressor and the aggressed in this situation, and he flattened her. I think he body slammed her or some shit like that, but she didn't look like she was going to get back up from that. Now, if that had been a cop, you might have been able to fire a shot, you might have been able to get off a less than lethal, whatever. He would have been way better trained to assess that situation than a motherfucking social worker. I'm telling you right now, if they try to apply that on any kind of large scale, they're going to get people killed. They're going to be people that have absolutely no experience with social interdiction or conflict resolution or even sense of operational awareness of their surroundings. They don't have that experience. And the people that they do try to employ that do have that experience are going to end up putting holes in people that didn't need to have holes in them because, again, they're not cops. They're not taught things like threat de-escalation and shit like that. No, they're fucking social workers. You know, they're the kind of people that you go and you visit them at a clinic in a controlled environment that has security guards. So if anything does go wonky, they can just hammer down on that. No, not the middle of the fucking hood. Okay, you're not going to be settling marital disputes at 3 a.m. with a motherfucking social worker in the hood. It's just not going to happen. In any case, I know we got way off in the field there, but like I said, that was like the one reasonable thing that they thought of in all this, you know, lockdown and this is the new normal and fuck you, is that, oh my god, how are we going to pay for cops? Yeah, you're not going to pay for cops if nobody's working. So, yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music for a few. But what do we have? I'm thinking I wanted to play some Voivod. I think that, yeah. Let's do that. Voivod. Scroll way down at the bottom. And here we go. Killing Technology by Bolivar here on Coin Metal. And that was Fear Factory with Protomech. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe, do your homework, and watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, I started a song by Nevermore, but we never actually got to it. And now that we're here, I think I actually want to play a different song by Nevermore for our last dance. And so here it is, Born, Last Dance, here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.